So I want to tell you, I went a little bit too fast just because my video only goes to 15 minutes. So I want to redo it, but I want to show you how I knew I was wrong. So when I went to graph it, if you look here, let me zoom it in a little bit. See how there are 1, 2, 3, 4 places it crosses the x-axis, and they're all real. I ended up getting plus or minus 2i. That would mean 2 of them are imaginary. If 2 of them were imaginary, that means it would look something like, let's see, it's negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it wouldn't even, oops, I didn't do that very well. Yeah, it's hard to even graph it. So I couldn't even make it work. So with that being said, I want to show you, I did this problem 3 different ways. Oh, and I want to show you too, see how it's kind of hard to see? If you, just to remind you, if you go to menu and you go Windows Zoom, oops, sorry, and you go standard, it puts it back to the normal size, and then it's easier to see 0, 2, 3, -2, which confirms it, okay? So I want to show you, I ended up doing this problem 3 different ways. The first way I did it was this. I took out, let me kind of go line by line. I noticed they all had an x, so I took out an x. Then after that, I took this and I factored it by grouping. So I brought down this x, I factored by grouping, and then after I factored by grouping, I ended up with this. And then I saw with x squared minus 4, and I still brought down the x. I can get x minus 2, x plus 2. And then I set everything equal to 0. I got 0, 2, -2, and 3. I also wanted to show you through synthetic division how I did it. Now, one thing you have to be careful of is see how it ends in -12x? That means there's a number over here. That would have had to been 0. So your possibilities would have been plus or minus 0. But then once you got that and this became your new highlight, then all your possibilities are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 6, excuse me, plus or minus 12. Hence me getting the 2, the -2, and the 3. And then I decided in the beginning here to go straight to solve by grouping. So I took out the -x cubed so I can make it x minus 3. I didn't like minus plus. I feel better in a plus minus world. And then I grouped them. But notice what I did. I put the 4x first because it seemed weird to put the -x cubed first. So I just put this first, this second. I noticed these two had an x, so I took it out. Then 4 minus x squared, and I still get my answers. The truth is, it doesn't matter how you do it. Get the right answer, but those are 3 different ways. Okay, now we're on page 3. Find the zeros. If it was me, what I would do is I would pretend this is x squared plus 3x minus 4. So that would be x plus 4, x minus 3. But since it's x to the 4th, it's really x squared, x squared. Then I would set it equal to 0. If I set x squared plus 4 equal to 0, I subtract 4, and then I square root. Because I can't take the square root of it there because it's a plus. And then I get x equals plus or minus 2i, so there's 2 answers. Then I go x squared minus 3 equals 0, add 3, square root, x equals plus or minus rad 3. So there's my 4 answers. Some of you would want to do synthetic division. I mean PQ method, which is synthetic. If you're going to do that, PQ 1, 0, 3, 0, -4, and then plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4, and you would try those, and then you would see none of them work. Wow, that was a bad one. And so that means you would have to try another way. So in that case, you have no choice. You would have to factor it. Okay? All right. Let's go to the next one. The degree is 4, so I know it's got to start in x to the 4th. Okay, create a polynomial from the information above. So it doesn't say that it has to be an equation or a function, so I'll just write y equals. Okay. If it's a 3 and a bounce, that means that's x minus 3 squared. The minus 2 means plus 2. And then there's an x right here. That gives me 2, 3, 4 zeros. But the problem is the point -1,8 needs to be included. So technically this isn't the final answer. So I have to put -1 in there. And then I have to put 8 in there and see if it's going to work out. So I go 8 equals -1 times negative 1 minus 3 squared times negative 1 plus 2. That's negative 1. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. Squared is 16. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1 equals 8. 8 equals negative 16. Well, that isn't the case. So it means there's got to be a number in front, like in the previous problem that we had when we did this problem here. So then I divide by negative 16, and then a equals negative 1/2. Therefore, my actual equation in factored form is negative 1/2 x. Because remember, when you have an x, it's going to equal 0, but you don't know if there's a number there. X minus 3 squared, x plus 2. So what I could do right now, and I'll try and do it as efficiently as I can. So Control G, I'm going to delete the previous one. And what I want to do, because I want to check it, so go Control Divide, negative 1 over 2, x, parentheses, x minus 3 squared, parenthesis, x plus 2. And I'm going to graph it. And what I'm hoping is, oops, I have too many parentheses. Sorry. Ugh, this is just a mess. All right, I'm going to redo it. So always make sure that you're actually making it look exactly how it did before. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so what I need to look for is that it touches a 3 and it bounces. Okay, what am I? So for some reason I tried to graph it like this and it just wouldn't let me do it. It changed it. I don't know what's going on. This is why we can't always rely on the calculator. But what I can do is change this to standard form, and when I graph it, it should match. So if I'm going to change this to standard form, the most annoying part for me is the fraction. And remember, this part will be bonus. So if you do standard form, it'll be bonus. X minus 3 squared means x minus 3 times x minus 3 is x squared plus 6x plus 9. Then multiply that by x plus 2. And with x cubed minus 4x squared, let's see, plus 9x minus 12x minus 3x plus 18. And then multiply that by negative 1/2 x. So if I'm making this y equals, I have to make this y equals negative 1/2 x to the 4th plus half of negative 4 is 2. You can't take half of 3. Well, I mean, technically you can, but let's leave it a fraction. And then minus half of 18 is 9. Now what I could do is take this, which I will pause it real quick, put it in the calculator, and make sure that it actually matches my 3 bounce, negative 2, 4, and it crosses negative 1, 8. So what I did is I inputted, my actual answer that I got in standard form here. And let me press Control G to clear it. Now, if you look, there's my 3 bounce. There's my negative 2 through, and there's my 0 through. And then the point negative 1, 8 looks like it's right up there. So I feel good to go. Okay. Next problem is, this is the no calculator section, so I can't use it. This looks like factor by grouping, but I know it's not, because if I take out a 2, if I group this, I take out a 2x cubed, x minus 6, and then here I would take out a 2, and I'd be left with 3x squared plus 10, or 2x, 3x squared plus 10. I also knew this because this was plus minus, and this was plus plus. But what I do see is that this one, and this one all have an x. So for me, I'm going to make my life a little bit easier and take out an x. So I know one of my answers is 0 because of that x. So I'm just going to get that done and put that to the side. Now I know it can't be factored by grouping, so I have no choice but to PQ. 2, negative 12, 6, 20. Now I can't cheat because I don't know what's in the calculator, but I can tell you my possible p's: plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 10, plus or minus 20. A way to check it: 1 times 20, 20. 2 times 10, 20. 4 times 5, 20. My q's, you know what I would have done now that I'm looking at this? This is even, this is even, this is even, and this is even. So I would have divided all of those by 2. Okay? And actually what I would have ended up with now is x cubed minus 6x squared plus 3x plus 10. And the reason I do that, because now my PQ, so all my possible P's are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 10. My Q is plus or minus 1, which is covered there, and P over Q, well, it's 1, so I'm good to go there. So I'm actually going to change this. This is going to be a 1. This is going to be a negative 6. Do you notice how it cuts down my chances? Let me just do it over it. It's getting a little bit messy. I apologize. Now I'm going to do my PQ. 1, negative 6, 3, 10. Okay, so I try 1, negative 5, negative 2. That doesn't work. Negative 1, negative 1, negative 7, 10. Perfect. That one works. Yes, I got my other answer now. So now I'm going to put that over here. So there's my negative 1. X equals negative 1. Okay. Now, it was an x cubed. I took out an x, so now it's x squared minus 7x plus 10. Two numbers that multiply to get 10 and add to 7. 5 and 2. So I set that equal to 0, I get 5. I set that equal to 0, I get 2. So now I have x equals 5, x equals 2. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, and it's x to the 4th power. Okay?